My name is Kesha Monroe, and I'm 41 years old. 3 days ago, my husband looked me dead in the eye while I was burning up with fever and said, "Hey, you sickly little dog, I've already filed the divorce papers. Be out of my house tomorrow." He thought I was broke. He thought I was nothing. He was dead wrong. Before I tell you how I made him regret every single word that came out of his filthy mouth, let me know in the comments what state you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can keep growing and bring you more revenge stories that'll make your jaw drop. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every second of this. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. 3 days ago, I was lying in my bed, barely able to move. The fever had taken over my entire body, 104 degrees. My head was pounding like someone was taking a hammer to my skull. My throat felt like I'd swallowed glass. Every breath I took sent sharp pains through my chest. I was shaking so violently that the sheets were soaked through with my sweat. I'd been bedridden like this for 2 straight days, 2 days of hell. That morning, I'd asked my husband, Darnell Tyrone Carter, to pick up some fever reducers and antibiotics for me. Simple request, right? Just go to the pharmacy and get your sick wife some medicine. But it was now past midnight, and Darnell hadn't come home. The house was silent, eerily silent. All I could hear was that damn clock in the living room, ticking away like it was counting down the last moments of my patience. I tried to reach for the glass of water on my nightstand. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even grip it properly. The glass slipped right through my fingers and crashed onto the rug. Water spilled everywhere, and all I could do was lie there, helpless, staring at the ceiling, wondering where the hell my husband was. Darnell had changed. God, had he changed. It started about a year ago when he got promoted to department head at his company. Suddenly, he was too good for everyone, too good for me. He started coming home late, sometimes not until 3:00 or 4:00 in the morning. When I asked where he'd been, he'd snap at me, blame me for everything. The house wasn't clean enough. Dinner wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. And then 3 months ago, I started getting sick more often. The coughing wouldn't stop. I was tired all the time. Instead of showing me any compassion, any concern, Darnell started calling me the sickly woman. Can you believe that? Your wife is sick, and instead of helping her, you mock her. You belittle her. He seemed to forget everything I'd done for him. He forgot that I was the woman who stood by him when we had nothing, when we were living in that cramped, roach-infested apartment in Brooklyn, barely scraping by. When he lost his job and spent 6 months on the couch, depressed and angry at the world, I was there. I held him. I encouraged him. I believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. But none of that mattered anymore. I heard it then, the sound of his luxury sedan pulling into the driveway. Finally, I felt a tiny bit of relief wash over me. He was home. He must have brought the medicine. I tried to sit up, bracing my aching back against the headboard. I waited. I waited for him to open the door and bring me what I needed. The front door slammed shut. Not gently, slammed. And then I heard footsteps. Heavy, angry footsteps. These weren't the steps of a man who was concerned about his sick wife. These were the steps of a man who was furious. About what? I had no idea. The bedroom door flew open. There stood Darnell, 6'2" in of pure arrogance. He was wearing his designer shirt, hair perfectly styled, face handsome as always. But the look in his eyes, pure hatred, cold, venomous hatred, and in his hands, no pharmacy bag, no medicine, just a thick brown legal folder. "Darnell," I whispered. My voice was sore, I barely recognized it. "Where's my medicine? My head is killing me, honey. I have a fever." He laughed, actually laughed. It was the most horrible sound I'd ever heard. "Medicine," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I brought something much better than medicine. This is medicine for both of us. A cure for my life." He walked over and threw the folder onto the bed. It landed on my legs. I stared at it, confused, my brain foggy from the fever. "What is this, honey?" I asked. "Open it if you don't want to die of curiosity," he said coldly. With trembling fingers, I picked up the folder. I could barely break the seal. My hands wouldn't cooperate. Finally, I got it open and pulled out the papers. At the top, in bold letters, I read petition for dissolution of marriage. Everything stopped. My heart, my breathing, time itself. I looked up at Darnell, searching his face for any sign that this was some sick joke, but all I saw was satisfaction. Pure sick satisfaction. Divorce, I whispered. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Why are you surprised? Darnell scoffed. He sat on the edge of the bed, but far away from me, like I disgusted him. Listen up, you sickly, broke little dog. Do you think I want to spend the rest of my life taking care of a useless burden like you? I've handled everything. I already filed the divorce papers. He stood up and started pacing the room like he was delivering some grand speech. I'm sick of it. Sick of seeing you cough every single day. Sick of seeing you lying in bed with no energy. You're a liability, Kesha. A weight dragging me down. Honey, what did I do wrong? I tried to speak, but tears were already forming in my eyes. Your fault? He turned to face me, his expression twisted with disgust. Your fault is being poor. You can't give me anything. Look at all this. He gestured around the luxurious bedroom. This house, all this expensive furniture, the luxury cars in the garage, it's all mine. I worked hard for all of this. Everything is in my name, not yours. Mine. I said nothing. I just stared at him, behind my gaze. There was something brewing, something he couldn't see, something he would never understand. Are you listening to me? He shouted. You won't get a single penny. Asset division. Don't even dream about it. You brought nothing into this house and you'll take nothing when you leave. And then he said the words that shattered whatever was left of my heart. When this is over, he said, his face actually glowing with excitement, I'm marrying my fiancée Simone. She's much healthier, much prettier, and most importantly, she understands my position as a successful man. Unlike you, Simone. So, there was another woman. Of course there was. I closed my eyes. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife ever could. I don't want to see your face in this house again tomorrow morning, Darnell said cruelly. I'm giving you until dawn. Get out of this house tomorrow morning. Don't take anything but the clothes on your sick body. He looked at me one more time as I wept silently. Tears were streaming down my face, soaking the pillow. Crying won't change a thing, he said. The papers are already filed. The process will be quick. He straightened his shirt and walked toward the door. I'm sleeping at Simone's downtown loft tonight. I don't want to be under the same roof as you. He paused at the doorway. Tomorrow morning, I'm sending someone to make sure you're gone. And then he was gone. The door slammed. The main door slammed. I heard his SUV roar to life and speed out of the driveway. I was alone, gravely ill, divorced, and evicted all in one night. I cried. God, how I cried. The pain in my heart was so much worse than the fever burning through my body. I cried for the marriage I thought we had. I cried for the man I thought I knew. I cried for all the years I'd wasted loving someone who saw me as nothing more than garbage. I cried for 15 minutes straight, 15 minutes of pure agony. And then something happened. Something shifted inside me. I stopped crying. I gasped for air and roughly wiped away my tears. In the midst of all that pain, something else rose up. Something cold. Something hard. Something calculating. My face, which had been pale and weak, hardened with resolve. I reached beneath my pillow, not the one I usually used, but an extra pillow I always kept there for a very specific reason. My fingers touched something hard and slim. I pulled it out. It was a state-of-the-art smartphone, far more sophisticated than the old phone I kept on the nightstand. This phone was my only secret, an object Darnell didn't even know existed. The phone opened with my fingerprint. No pattern lock. The screen lit up showing a plain white background. No social media apps, no games, just encrypted business applications. I opened a single contact saved under the name Director Valencia Thompson. My heart was pounding, not from the illness anymore, but from the rage building inside me. I pressed the call button. It connected on the first ring. A calm, professional woman's voice answered. Good evening, Miss Monroe. You're calling at this hour. Are you all right? I was told you weren't feeling well. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my trembling voice. Director Thompson, I said, my voice raspy but cold as ice. Contingency plan activated. There was a brief silence. Then Director Thompson's voice turned serious. Understood, ma'am. What has happened? I was evicted, I said. The words felt surreal coming out of my mouth. Darnell divorced me. He thinks I'm a useless, sickly little dog. Good heavens, Director Thompson hissed. The sheer audacity of Mr. Carter. Director, I'm ill, I continued. My fever is very high. I need medical evacuation. I don't want to go to a regular hospital. Come to the house and pick me up. Bring the private medical team from Kings Mountain Clinic. No sirens. Do it quietly. I don't want anyone to know. Understood, ma'am, she said immediately. The VVIP medical team will be there in 30 minutes. I will come to fetch you myself. Can you hold on? I looked at the divorce papers crumpled on the comforter. With the last bit of strength I had, I balled them up in my fist. I have to hold on, Director. The game has just begun. I hung up the phone. My body was still trembling from the fever. But my eyes were glowing with a sharpness I hadn't felt in years. Darnell had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had just thrown out his wife. What he didn't know, what his arrogant, stupid brain couldn't comprehend, was that he had just thrown out the owner of Monroe Luxury Group, a global corporation with a net profit of $5 million a month. My money, my empire, my power. And he had no idea what was coming for him. I waited in that suffocating silence. Every tick of that clock felt like a hammer blow to my skull. I clutched my secret phone tightly. My mind was racing. Part of me was terrified that Darnell might suddenly come back. Part of me was terrified the medical team might be delayed. My body kept shifting between bone-chilling cold and searing heat. Exactly 25 minutes later, my phone vibrated silently. A text message from Director Thompson. We have arrived. The door is unlocked. The team is entering. I let out a shaky sigh of relief. I knew Darnell wouldn't lock the door. That arrogant fool was too confident that his nearly dying wife couldn't do anything. He underestimated me. He always had. With every ounce of strength I had left, I pushed the comforter aside. My feet touched the cold carpeted floor. My head spun violently. I almost collapsed right there, but I grabbed onto the bedpost. I had to leave. I had to get out of this house with my dignity intact. I saw my long trench coat hanging behind the door. With trembling hands, I grabbed it and put it on. I wouldn't leave this house looking defeated. I wouldn't give Darnell that satisfaction. The bedroom door opened silently. I flinched for a moment, but then I saw two people in dark scrubs. Not flashy white nurse uniforms, dark, discreet scrubs. They moved quickly and quietly, professionally. Behind them appeared Director Valencia Thompson, a woman in her late 50s with a stern yet kind face. She was dressed in a sharp blazer and neat attire. When she saw my condition, her face immediately showed deep concern. Miss Monroe, she whispered. I'm ready, Director, I replied weakly. Put Miss Monroe on the portable stretcher. Director Thompson ordered the medical team. They immediately unfolded a collapsible gurney. They helped me lie down with the utmost care, treating me like I was made of glass. Ma'am, we'll inject a temporary fever reducer so you're more comfortable during the transfer, one of the medical team members said softly. I just nodded. I felt a slight prick in my arm, and soon a cold, soothing sensation spread through my veins. As they lifted me, I took one last look at that bedroom. The bedroom I had decorated myself. The bedroom that had been a silent witness to Darnell's transformation from a loving husband to a monster. I looked at the large wedding photo hanging in the living room as they carried me through. A picture of me and Darnell smiling so happily. The Darnell I used to know. The Darnell who was tender and loving and made me believe in forever. Now that photo felt like a cruel joke. Leave everything. Don't take anything, I whispered to Director Thompson. Of course, ma'am. We don't need anything from here, she replied firmly. They carried me out through the front door. In the driveway, there was no flashy ambulance. What was parked there was a black Mercedes-Benz Sprinter that looked like a presidential escort vehicle. The side door slid open, revealing an interior that was a fully equipped VVIP emergency medical space. Leather seats, monitors, IV equipment, everything you could imagine. Meanwhile, across town in a luxury downtown loft, Darnell was laughing. Actually laughing. He poured a cocktail into a tall glass for Simone, a young, beautiful 28-year-old woman wearing a sheer negligee. "So, tomorrow we'll officially be the owners of that big house, darling," Simone asked flirtatiously. "Of course," Darnell said, embracing her. "I evicted her. That sickly dog won't dare to object. She has nothing. Tomorrow I'll have all the locks changed, and the day after we can start remodeling the bedroom." "How exciting," Simone exclaimed. "Finally, all of this will be ours." Darnell raised his glass to our new life. His cell phone was on the table on silent mode. He didn't want to be disturbed by any calls from that sickly woman. He had no idea. No idea at all. Inside that smooth, gliding medical vehicle cutting through the night, my condition was being attended to. A doctor waiting inside immediately started an IV line. Temperature 104 degree F. Pretty severe infection, the doctor said. "But we're acting now. We need to move her quickly to the clinic for intensive care." Director Thompson sat in a chair next to my gurney. She watched my pale face with worried eyes. "Ma'am, you must be strong. We've prepared everything at Kings Mountain Clinic." I closed my eyes. The fever reducer was starting to work, reducing the dizziness. My thoughts drifted back to 5 years ago. Back to the beginning of this whole secret. 5 years ago, Darnell had just been laid off from his first job. He was depressed, deeply depressed for months. I tried everything to comfort him, to lift his spirits. But Darnell started becoming sensitive about money, about his pride. He forbade me from working. "Your job is to be at home," he insisted. "I'll earn the money." But I had a degree in biochemical engineering. I had ideas. I had dreams. While Darnell was busy looking for work and wallowing in self-pity, I started experimenting in our kitchen. Not cooking, formulating. I was formulating skincare products using organic herbal ingredients, recipes I'd inherited from my grandmother. I used all my personal savings to buy high-quality raw materials. After months of testing and tweaking, I successfully created a facial serum and a whitening cream with absolutely astonishing effects. I tried it on myself first. The results were incredible. Darnell was too busy with his own problems to notice. He just thought his wife was playing around in the kitchen. I gathered my courage and opened a small online store. At first, I only sold to friends and acquaintances, but word of mouth is powerful. My products became famous. Orders started pouring in. They skyrocketed. It was around that time that Darnell finally landed a new job. His salary was decent, and suddenly he became arrogant. He started acting like he was better than everyone. He would come home and see me busy late at night on my old phone, responding to customer orders, managing shipments, handling finances. "I give you money and you're still glued to that phone," he yelled at me one night. "It seems like you have nothing better to do." I stayed silent. I didn't argue because that very night, I had just closed a sale worth $30,000. $30,000 while he was yelling at me about wasting time. The turning point came when I met Director Valencia Thompson at a seminar for women entrepreneurs. I attended as a participant, sitting in the back, trying to learn. Director Thompson was the invited speaker. She was a former high-ranking executive from a multinational corporation who had taken early retirement. Brilliant woman, powerful woman. I mustered up the courage to approach her after the event. I showed her my products and a handwritten business proposal I'd been working on for weeks. Director Thompson was astonished. "This product is excellent, Miss Monroe," she'd said, "and your business strategy is very solid." To make a long story short, Director Thompson agreed to join me, not as an investor, but as a partner. She wanted to work again. She saw my vision. Together, we founded Monroe Luxury Group, MLG. I was the owner, the brain behind all the products, the creator. Director Thompson became the CEO, the face of the company, the public representative. I requested one thing, just one thing, that my name not appear anywhere publicly. I wanted to remain Darnell's ordinary wife. I thought foolishly that if I supported him from the shadows, if I let him succeed in his new job, he would become a better husband. I was so wrong, so painfully, devastatingly wrong. The more successful Darnell became at his job, the more arrogant he grew. And MLG grew explosively. From skincare, we expanded into luxury fashion. High-end clothing and accessories that I designed became wildly popular in domestic and international markets: New York, Paris, Shanghai, Tokyo. Our products were everywhere. A net profit of $1, $5 million a month was just my personal income. That didn't include the company's overall revenue, which was dozens of times larger. I kept all this wealth carefully hidden. I continued to live simply. I wore modest clothes, I drove a modest car, I played the role of the supportive wife. When Darnell decided he wanted to buy that luxury house and those expensive sports cars, he had to take out a massive loan from the bank, $4 million. He boasted that he got the loan approved thanks to his excellent job performance and his stellar reputation. What Darnell didn't know, what his arrogant brain never questioned, was that his business loan, which was on the verge of defaulting a year ago when his side investments went south, had been secretly bought entirely by an investment company. And that company was a subsidiary of MLG, of my company, the luxury house he was so proud of, the sports cars he bragged about to his friends, the ones that were collateral for that loan. They now legally belonged not to the bank but to MLG Holdings. They belonged to me. Everything he thought was his was actually mine, and he had no idea. I opened my eyes as the medical vehicle entered the VVIP area of Kings Mountain Clinic. "Director," I called out. My voice was still weak, but my gaze was as sharp as steel. "Yes, Miss Monroe." Director Thompson leaned closer. "Darnell took the house and the cars," I said. "He said they were all his, that they were in his name." Director Thompson smiled slightly, a knowing, meaningful smile. "He forgot, ma'am, who paid off his business loan from First National Bank of Atlanta a year ago when he was about to face foreclosure. He forgot," I continued, feeling my strength returning bit by bit, "that the collateral for that loan was that house and those luxury cars he boasted about every single day, and he certainly doesn't know." Director Thompson added that the investment company that bought all his debt from the bank is Monroe Luxury Group. There was a moment of silence. The doctor and nurse inside the vehicle professionally pretended not to have heard our conversation. "Director Thompson," I said, my voice cold and clear, "initiate the asset recovery procedure." "When should I start, ma'am?" I looked at the streetlights passing by the window. The city looked so peaceful, so unaware of the storm that was about to hit. "He evicted me tonight. I said he will think I'll be homeless tomorrow morning. I want to let him enjoy his victory with that woman, Simone. Give him 3 days. 3 days to enjoy his win." Director Thompson nodded. 3 days. Consider it the final free rental period." "Exactly." I said. "On the 3rd day, we recover everything that is rightfully mine." "Good," Director Thompson said firmly. "On the 3rd day, our legal team will move. He won't know what hit him." "Perfect," I whispered. "Now focus on curing me. I need to be healthy and strong to see his face shatter into a million pieces." The medical vehicle stopped at a private entrance. A team of specialist doctors was already waiting. I was transferred to a presidential treatment suite, a room more luxurious than any 5-star hotel. And far away, across town, Darnell was sleeping soundly in Simone's arms, dreaming of his beautiful new life. He had no idea that his real life would end in exactly 3 days. The victory was too sweet for Darnell, too intoxicating. He woke up the next morning in Simone's luxurious loft. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, bathing the room in golden light. Simone was still sleeping beside him, hugging his arm tightly. He looked at her pretty face and smiled, so satisfied, so smug. He had done it. He'd gotten rid of the burden on his life. That sickly dog, Kesha. He imagined that by now I would be crying at some bus station, trying to scrape together enough money to get back to my parents' poor house. The thought made him chuckle. "Good morning, honey?" Simone's husky voice rang out. She opened her eyes lazily. "What time is it? Is that woman gone from our house yet?" "She's definitely gone," Darnell replied confidently. "I told her to leave before dawn. She has no choice. She has no money, no power. She's just a weak woman who lived off me her whole life." Simone smiled. "Great. I'm already excited to move there. This loft is luxurious. But that house is a palace, and I'll be the queen." "Of course, honey," Darnell said. "Anything for you." "Come on, get ready," Simone said, getting out of bed. We'll have breakfast at our new house today. I'll tell the cleaning lady to throw out everything of Kesha's that's left. I don't want a single trace of her remaining. An hour later, Darnell's luxury sports car smoothly pulled into the driveway of that big house. He stepped out wearing sunglasses, strutting like he owned the world. Simone walked beside him, clinging to his arm, looking so proud. Darnell opened the front door. "Welcome to our palace, my queen," he said dramatically. They walked inside, and it was strange. The house was extremely silent, but also very clean. Too clean, actually. Darnell had expected me to have left some kind of mess, thrown things around, maybe broken something out of anger, but there was nothing. Not a single thing out of place. He walked to the bedroom and opened the door, his heart beating just a little faster. The room was incredibly tidy. The bed where I had been lying sick just yesterday was now made up with crisp white sheets. There was no trace of medicine bottles, no broken glass. Even the rug where I dropped the water glass looked perfectly clean and dry. "She must have cleaned up," Darnell muttered, confused. "I'm glad she behaved," Simone said from behind him. "At least she was useful one last time." But Darnell felt uneasy. Something was off. How could I, burning up with a high fever, have cleaned this room so perfectly? And where were all the dirty sheets? He checked the closet. My modest clothes, my long dresses, my headscarves, they were all gone. The vanity drawers were empty too. "She really is gone," Darnell said, finally feeling relieved. He shook off the strange feeling. Maybe I'd called a taxi and managed to pack a small suitcase before leaving. Better this way. "A clean cut." "Of course it's clean," Simone exclaimed excitedly. "Now let's measure this room. I want to change this bed. It's too old-fashioned. I want a round canopy bed. And these walls need painting. I want a gold color. Real gold." Simone rushed through the house, her sharp voice echoing. She pointed at everything. "This sofa is ugly. Change it. That painting is tacky. Throw it away. This kitchen needs a complete remodel. I want an imported Italian kitchen set." Darnell just smiled and nodded. "Yes, honey. I'll change everything for you. We'll celebrate tonight." Darnell announced, "I'll invite our closest friends. Order the most luxurious catering in the city." He picked up his phone and called his usual premium catering service. He ordered everything. Imported Wagyu beef, fresh seafood platters, European premium wines, the works. "Understood, Mr. Carter," the catering employee said over the phone. "The total order amount is $2 or dollars. Following our procedure, we request a 50% deposit payment now." "Of course," Darnell said arrogantly. "Send me the invoice. I'll pay with my primary credit card." He sat on the sofa. Simone claimed to hate and opened his banking app. He tried to pay the $1 as $1,000 catering deposit. He entered his credit card number confidently and pressed the payment button. The phone processed for a moment. Then a red notification flashed on the screen. "Transaction denied." Darnell frowned. That was strange. The limit on this card was still in the hundreds of thousands. "It's probably just a signal issue," he muttered. He tried again. "Transaction denied." "Honey, why are you taking so long?" Simone called from the other room where she was taking selfies. "One moment, darling," Darnell said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I think the bank is having a network issue." He tried with another credit card from the same bank. Rejected. A cold sweat started forming on his temples. This couldn't be happening. He was a VIP client. Why were all his cards being rejected? He tried his debit card. Rejected. Insufficient funds. Darnell's eyes widened. Insufficient funds. Impossible. His salary had been deposited 3 days ago. He quickly closed the payment app and opened his main mobile banking app. His heart was pounding now. He entered his password. The screen loaded and then a message appeared. "Access blocked. Please contact your nearest branch." Darnell's entire body went rigid. Panic started spreading through his chest like wildfire. This was a disaster. He couldn't access his payroll account. He couldn't use any of his credit cards. "Darnell, the catering guy just called me," Simone yelled, her voice sharp. "He says the payment is still rejected." How embarrassing. Darnell was panicking. He suddenly remembered he had an emergency account at another bank, an account he barely used. The balance wasn't much, but there should be a few thousand left. With trembling hands, he tried to pay the catering deposit using that account. Success. Darnell exhaled deeply. For a moment, he could save face. See? He called out to Simone with a forced smile. It was just a network problem. It's solved now. The catering will arrive at 7 tonight. Simone cheered up again. Great! Now I need to go to the hair salon. After Simone left, Darnell's smile vanished instantly. His face went pale. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Why was his main account blocked? Why were all his credit cards declined? He tried to think rationally. Did this have anything to do with me? With Kesha? No. Impossible. That stupid woman couldn't pull off something like this. She was nobody. She had nothing. He promised himself that first thing tomorrow morning, he'd call the bank and give them hell. He'd demand compensation for this humiliation. Later that afternoon, as he was pacing around the house trying to suppress his anxiety, the doorbell rang. Darnell opened the door. A uniformed courier stood there holding a large brown envelope. Mr. Darnell Carter. Yes, that's me. Certified mail. Sign here, please. Darnell signed the receipt, closed the door, and examined the envelope. The sender was a law firm with a very expensive-sounding name, Blackstone and Associates. He thought it must be the court approval documents related to his divorce petition. He opened it expecting routine paperwork, but the contents made his blood run cold. It wasn't from family court. It was a notarized demand letter, a legal warning. His eyes scanned the harsh formal sentences. Dear Mr. Carter, on behalf of our client, Monroe Luxury Group Holdings, we notify you that you have incurred a breach of contract on your business line of credit. The total amount of your principal loan, $4 million, has fallen due immediately. We give you a grace period of 3 days to liquidate the full debt. Failure to do so will result in immediate forced execution of your assets, namely 1 residential property located at 847 Magnolia Heights Drive, and 1 luxury sports vehicle registration number. The glass Darnell was holding slipped from his hands and shattered on the marble floor. Sweat poured from his forehead. 3 days, $4 million foreclosure on the house. No, impossible, he whispered, his whole body shaking. I paid the installment last week. What breach? And what the hell is Monroe Luxury Group Holdings? His victory celebration had suddenly turned into the beginning of a nightmare. That night, with music playing and friends laughing and Simone showing off, Darnell could only manage a fake smile. His mind was complete chaos. He felt an invisible trap slowly closing around his neck, squeezing tighter and tighter. And he had no idea that trap had been set by me, by the woman he threw away like garbage. Darnell couldn't sleep that night, not a single hour. Beside him, Simone slept peacefully, exhausted from their little party. But in Darnell's mind, those words kept spinning like a broken record. $4 million, 3 days, forced execution. Monroe Luxury Group. As soon as dawn broke, Darnell jumped out of bed. His body ached, his eyes were bloodshot. He didn't even shower. He just splashed water on his face and threw on whatever clothes he could find. At 8:00 sharp, the moment the bank opened, Darnell was already speeding toward his branch, the one where he was supposedly a VIP client. He stormed inside, bypassing the line of regular customers, and headed straight for the VIP service counter. I'm Darnell Carter, he said loudly, slamming his VIP card on the counter. I want to see the branch manager right now. The startled employee immediately attended to him. Darnell was ushered into a special waiting room. 5 minutes later, a relationship manager in a sharp suit came in. It wasn't the branch manager. Good morning, Mr. Carter. How may I help you today? Don't beat around the bush. Darnell interrupted curtly. Explain to me why all my credit cards are blocked, why my payroll account is frozen, and why I received some absurd breach of contract demand yesterday. The manager calmly looked at his computer screen. I apologize for the inconvenience, Mr. Carter. Allow me to check. He typed for a moment. Interesting. What's interesting? Darnell yelled, slamming his fist on the desk. The manager looked up. We are not the ones who blocked your accounts and credit cards, sir. It's simply that your balance is effectively zero, and your credit card limits are completely exhausted. Impossible, Darnell screamed. My salary was deposited thousands of dollars just days ago, and my credit limit is in the hundreds of thousands. I didn't use anything. That's correct, sir, the manager said, still infuriatingly calm. However, Our system records an emergency automatic debit on your business line of credit last night at 12:01 a.m. This debit absorbed the total balance of your payroll account and simultaneously exhausted the entire remaining limit of all your credit cards. Darnell's face went completely white. An emergency debit? By whose order? The manager looked at the screen again. Not by our order, sir. It's an order from the new owner of your line of credit. New owner? Darnell's voice cracked. According to our records, the manager continued, the $4 million business loan you had with our bank was sold 6 months ago to a private equity firm called Monroe Luxury Group Holdings. We only act as a managing agency for the monthly installment payments. Darnell's heart stopped. Monroe Luxury Group. That name again. Why would they do this? He whispered. I've never missed a payment. The manager shook his head. That is outside our jurisdiction, sir. According to the notification we received last night from MLG Holdings, you have been declared in breach of contract under the loan sale agreement. When a breach occurs, MLG Holdings has the right to forcibly withdraw funds from your accounts as an initial late penalty, and it appears that's exactly what they have done. Darnell felt faint. He gripped the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles turned white. How can I be in breach? We don't know the details, sir, the manager said with an expressionless tone, as if discussing the weather. Surely they are explained in the notary demand letter you received. You will have to talk directly with MLG Holdings or their lawyers. Darnell stumbled out of that bank like a drunk man. The sky seemed to be spinning above him. Sweat soaked through his shirt, even though it was a cool morning. He sat in his sports car, the car that would be repossessed in just 2 more days, and his hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold his phone. Monroe Luxury Group Holdings. That name kept echoing in his head. He pulled out his phone and searched for it on the internet. What appeared made his stomach drop. Monroe Luxury Group was a giant corporation, a massive conglomerate operating in luxury fashion, global skincare, real estate, and international investments. Their logo was everywhere. High-end department stores, fashion magazines, business news. He'd seen it before, but never paid attention. Why? He muttered desperately. Why would such a massive company buy my miserable debt? Then he remembered the name of the law firm on the demand letter, Blackstone and Associates. With trembling fingers, he called the phone number listed on the document. Good morning, Blackstone and Associates, a professional voice answered. I'm Darnell Carter, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I received a notary demand letter on behalf of MLG Holdings yesterday. This must be a mistake. I've never defaulted on anything. The voice on the other end was calm and absolutely chilling. There is no mistake, Mr. Carter. Our client is acting according to the law. You violated Clause 11, Section B of the loan agreement you signed. Clause 11, Section B? Darnell's mind was blank. What the hell is that? If you find reading the documents you signed tedious, Mr. Carter, the lawyer said with barely concealed contempt, that clause stipulates that you are obligated to maintain family harmony and not commit immoral or dishonorable acts that might affect the image or integrity of the business loan. Darnell went completely silent, the blood drained from his face. That's an absurd clause, he finally managed to say. It has nothing to do with the debt. It does, Mr. Carter, the lawyer replied smoothly. When your loan was sold to our client, all clauses, especially that moral clause, were activated and reinforced. Our client is a company that highly values family values and ethical business practices. Your action of divorcing and evicting your gravely ill wife, Mrs. Kesha Monroe, in order to live with another woman is a severe and flagrant violation of Clause 11, Section B. Darnell couldn't breathe. His chest felt like it was being crushed. How? He gasped. How did they know? We have irrefutable proof, Mr. Carter, the lawyer said. Pographs, audio recordings, video footage, and witnesses. We know you evicted your wife 2 nights ago while she was suffering from a high fever. That action is what triggered this breach claim. Darnell's knees went weak. He slumped against his car. Kesha, he whispered. This is all because of Kesha. But how? How did Kesha know? MLG Holdings? Was she a cleaning lady there? Did she complain to some sympathetic manager? None of it made sense. What do they want? Darnell asked, his voice now trembling with fear. Give me time. I'll pay the installments. I'll do whatever they want. It's too late for that, Mr. Carter, the lawyer said coldly. Our client is not interested in installments. According to the notary demand letter, you have time remaining. Let me see. You have 2 days and 7 hours to pay the full $4 million. Otherwise, our execution team will seize your house and all vehicles. Good day, Mr. Carter. The call ended. Darnell threw his phone against the dashboard. It cracked but didn't break. He screamed inside the car, a primal scream of absolute terror and rage. $4 million in 2 days. It was impossible. Completely impossible. His salary was frozen. His only real property was this house and this car, and they weren't even really his. They belonged to some corporation called Monroe Luxury Group. He tried to think clearly through his panic. Kesha, this had to be Kaz doing somehow. But how? She was just a poor, simple housewife, wasn't she? He tried to find out who owned MLG Holdings. He searched every business news portal he could find. The owner was described as a mysterious figure. The company was run by a CEO named Director Valencia Thompson. Valencia. That name sounded familiar. Darnell's brow furrowed as he tried to remember. Then it hit him. Years ago, Kesha had mentioned an Aunt Valencia, a friend from her women's group at church who was supposedly some kind of successful businesswoman. Darnell had always scoffed at it. Just a bunch of neighborhood ladies playing business, he'd said dismissively. Could it be? Could Kesha's church friend be the CEO of MLG Holdings? Darnell's head throbbed. This was all too much, too complicated. He had to find me. He had to find Kesha. He had to beg me to withdraw whatever complaint I'd made to this Director Valencia woman. Yes, that was the only way. He started his car immediately. He needed to know where I was. He had to go to my parents' house. Those poor people in their rundown neighborhood. I must have run there crying. He would go there right now. As he pulled out of the bank parking lot, his phone rang. It was Simone. Darnell ignored it. He didn't have time for her right now. She kept calling over and over. Finally, irritated beyond measure, he answered. What? He barked. Where are you, honey? Simone's voice was shrill. Why are you screaming? Come quickly. The credit card you gave me this morning was also rejected at the hair salon. I'm so embarrassed. Do you really have money or have you been lying to me? Darnell hit the steering wheel hard. More problems. I have an emergency, he yelled. You pay first with your own money. What? Simone shrieked. My money? That's impossible. Transfer money to me right now. I told you I have an emergency. Darnell screamed and hung up abruptly. At the hair salon, Simone stared at her phone in shock. It was the first time Darnell had ever yelled at her like that. She started to feel something was very, very wrong. The rich, successful man she'd been bragging about suddenly had problems with all his cards. Suspicion began growing in her mind like poison, but Darnell didn't care about Simone anymore. He didn't care about anything except finding me. He stepped on the accelerator. He had to find Kesha. He would kneel at my feet if he had to. He would beg. He would do whatever it took. He didn't know, couldn't possibly know that the Kesha he was looking for was no longer sick. I was recovering beautifully in my presidential suite at Kings Mountain Clinic, and I was sitting in my executive chair, monitoring his every panicked move through detailed reports from my legal team. Darnell couldn't escape. There was no escape. The trap was already closed. The second day was absolute hell for Darnell. His trip to my parents' house ended in complete failure. Their house was exactly as he remembered it. Small, modest, nothing fancy, the kind of place he used to mock. But my parents, though they looked poor, looked at him with such a mixture of hatred and pity that it made his skin crawl. I wasn't there. They had no idea where I was. You threw out my daughter when she was sick, didn't you? My father asked, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. And now you come here looking for her. Get out of here. Get out, and don't you dare step foot near this house again. Darnell tried to plead, tried to explain, but my father slammed the door in his face. He returned to the city with nothing, empty-handed, desperate. The little money he had left in his emergency account was being eaten up by gas for the round trip. That night, he and Simone had a massive fight. Simone wanted to know what the hell was going on. She wasn't stupid. She could see everything falling apart. On the verge of complete breakdown, Darnell finally confessed. He told her he had an administrative problem and that his accounts were temporarily frozen. He tried to downplay it, tried to make it sound like a simple banking error, but Simone wasn't buying it. She saw the notary demand letter still sitting on the living room table. She read it. 3 days, $4 million foreclosure. "You're ruined!" Simone screamed at him. "You're completely ruined, Darnell." "It's temporary," Darnell yelled back, his voice cracking. "I'll fix it. This is all Kesha's fault. That woman did something. I don't know what, but she did something." "I don't care whose fault it is," Simone shrieked. "I don't want to live with a poor person. I didn't sign up for this." That night, they slept in the same bed, but as far apart as possible, back to back. Cold, hostile. Darnell couldn't close his eyes even for a second. The countdown in his head kept running. Tomorrow. Tomorrow was the third day. The final day. The morning of the third day was the most terrifying morning of Darnell's entire life. The sun rose, but it felt like the end of the world was coming. At 9:00, as he and Simone were eating breakfast in complete, awkward silence, the doorbell rang. They both froze. They looked at each other. Their faces went pale. "Don't answer it," Darnell whispered. "Just pretend we're not home." The bell rang again, this time more insistently. Then came loud, authoritative knocking on the door. "Mr. Darnold Carter," a voice called out. "We know you're inside. We are the execution team from Blackstone and Associates law firm. Please open the door." Darnell's heart stopped beating. Simone started crying, actual tears of terror streaming down her face. "What are we going to do, Darnell?" she sobbed. "What are we going to do?" Darnell, panicking completely, ran toward the back door. He thought about escaping through the yard, maybe jumping the fence. But when he opened the kitchen door, 2 massive security guards in black suits were already standing there, arms crossed. "Please remain inside, sir," one of them said firmly. Darnell was surrounded, trapped. He went back to the living room, his legs shaking so badly he could barely walk. When the legal team finally managed to open the front door with the help of a locksmith they brought, a man in an impeccable suit walked in. He was holding a thick folder. Behind him, several court-marshals followed, carrying large stickers that read MLG Holdings, Sized Property. "Mr. Darnell Carter," the lawyer said in a voice as cold as ice, "your time is up. Exactly 72 hours have passed. By court order, we will now initiate the forced execution procedure of this property and all assets contained within to settle your unpaid debt to our client, Monroe Luxury Group Holdings." No. Darnell fell to his knees right there in his own living room. All his arrogance, all his pride vanished in an instant. "Please give me more time. I'll pay. I promise. Just give me 1 more week." The lawyer shook his head without a trace of sympathy. "You were given more than enough time, Mr. Carter. Our team will begin their work now. You may only take personal items that you are currently wearing. You have 15 minutes to voluntarily vacate this property." 15 minutes? Simone shrieked from behind him. And that's when it happened. That's when Simone realized the full reality of the situation. She looked at Darnell, kneeling on the floor, crying like a child. The man she thought was a king was nothing but a beggar, a complete fraud. Her face hardened. She didn't want to sink with him. Without saying a single word, Simone ran upstairs to the bedroom. "Simone!" Darnell shouted, bewildered. "Where are you going? Help me! Please help me!" But she didn't answer. The court-marshals began entering the house. They didn't care about the drama unfolding. They started placing those bright orange MLG Holdings foreclosure stickers on everything. The flat-screen TV, the luxury leather sofa, the expensive paintings on the walls, everything. Outside, Darnell could hear it. The sound of a tow truck backing into the driveway. They were coming for his sports car. His beautiful, expensive sports car. 5 minutes later, Simone came back downstairs. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was set, determined, cold. She was dragging 2 large suitcases that she must have packed in record time. She completely ignored Darnell, who was still on his knees staring at her in complete disbelief. She walked straight toward the front door. "Simone!" Darnell cried out, his voice completely broken. Are you leaving me? Are you really leaving me? Simone stopped. She turned around slowly. Her face was full of contempt. Pure, undiluted contempt. Leaving you? She said, her voice dripping with venom. Of course I'm leaving you. I don't want to live with a poor, pathetic failure like you. I thought you were a king, Darnell. I thought you were successful and powerful. But you were just a clown, a broke, lying clown. Enjoy your ruin alone. She pulled out her phone. I called a cab. It's already here. Goodbye, Darnell. Have a nice life on the streets. And just like that, Simone walked out. She dragged her suitcases past the execution agents, past the security guards, past the marshals without looking back even once. Darnell was frozen, completely paralyzed. He had been betrayed, abandoned, exactly the same way he had done to me just 3 days ago. The difference was that I had been thrown out while gravely ill. Simone was abandoning him at the peak of his absolute ruin. The karma was poetic, almost too perfect. Time's up, Mr. Carter, one of the security guards said, grabbing Darnell's arm roughly. Darnell was physically dragged out of his own house. Well, not his house. Never his house. My house. He was thrown onto the hot concrete sidewalk. He was still in his pajamas. He hadn't even had time to get dressed properly. He sat there on the burning pavement and watched as his prize sports car was hooked up to the tow truck and pulled out of the garage. He watched as the front door of the house was chained shut and sealed with official notices. Everything was gone. In 3 days, everything had been taken from him. Darnell collapsed completely. He lay there on the sidewalk, helpless. Passers-by walked by looking at him strangely. Some took pictures with their phones. The man who had been so arrogant was now a public spectacle, a cautionary tale. He was alone, completely, utterly alone, broke, homeless, with nobody, nothing. In his extreme panic, in his unspeakable humiliation, his brain could only focus on one name, one person, the source of all this destruction, Kesha. He checked his pockets frantically, his phone. His cracked phone was still there. He no longer knew who else to call. He had no friends left. They'd all abandoned him the moment they heard about his problems. Everyone was too afraid of MLG Holdings to associate with him. He wanted to curse me. He wanted to beg me. He didn't even know what he wanted anymore. He just needed to do something. Say something. With trembling, desperate hands, he searched his contacts for Kesha, my wife. He pressed the call button. He didn't actually expect me to answer. Maybe my number had changed. Maybe my phone was off. Maybe I blocked him. But the phone rang once, twice, and on the third ring, it connected. Hello. It was my voice. But it wasn't the weak, sickly voice Darnell remembered. It was calm, clear, strong, cold. Darnell, who had been ready to rage and scream, suddenly felt very, very small. He started crying, hysterical, uncontrollable sobbing. The wail of a complete loser. Kesha, he cried, his voice breaking into 1,000 pieces. Kesha, help me. Please, please, Kesha. I don't know what happened. They seized our house. They took the car. They kicked me out. I'm on the street. Kesha, why did this happen? Why? On the 40th floor of the MLG Holdings building, inside what used to be a VVIP treatment suite, but was now functioning as a temporary luxury office, I sat calmly. I was no longer bedridden. I was no longer sick. I was healthy, energetic, and absolutely powerful. I was wearing an emerald silk scarf that framed my face perfectly. In front of me, Director Valencia Thompson and several department heads were in the middle of an important meeting. We were discussing expansion into Middle Eastern markets. My old phone, the one Director Thompson had retrieved from the house, vibrated on the conference table. The name Darnell flashed on the screen. The entire meeting paused. Everyone looked at me. I raised my hand silently, asking everyone to stay quiet. I looked at Director Thompson and smiled, just a slight smile. Then I pressed the speaker button so everyone in that room could hear. Darnell's hysterical crying immediately filled the conference room. Kesha, help me, please. Kesha, I don't know what happened. They seized our house. They took the car. They kicked me out. I'm on the street. Kesha, why did this happen? Why? I waited. I let him finish crying. I let him finish begging. I gestured for everyone in the room to remain completely silent. The contrast was beautiful. The silence of this luxurious boardroom against Darnell's panicked, desperate voice. After his sobbing subsided a bit, I leaned closer to the microphone. I spoke with the calmest, strongest voice I could manage. A voice Darnell had never ever heard from me before. "Excuse me," I said coolly. "Who is this?" There was complete silence on the other end of the line. Even Darnell's crying stopped abruptly. "What?" His voice was confused, broken. "It's me. It's Darnell, your husband." "Ah, Mr. Carter," I said, my tone completely indifferent, as if I were talking to a stranger. I barely remembered. "I believe there's a misunderstanding. First of all, you are no longer my husband. My divorce papers were filed this morning. Second, our house. 3 days ago. You made it very, very clear that it was your house, didn't you? Not ours. Yours." I could hear Darnell gasping for breath on the other end. His confusion was palpable. "Kesha," he whispered, and I could hear the terror in his voice. "Where are you? What did you do? Your voice, are you healthy?" "I'm in the middle of an important meeting right now," I replied casually, leaning back in my executive chair. I looked out at the city skyline through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. "We're discussing business expansion into Dubai and Abu Dhabi. You know, business matters, things you wouldn't understand." There was confused silence from Darnell. "Kesha, stop talking nonsense," he suddenly yelled, desperation making him bold. "Help me. I know this is your doing. It must be that woman, that director, Valencia Thompson from your church group, right? You complained to her. You told her some lies about me. Please, Kesha, tell her to stop all this. I'll do anything. I'll come back to you. I'll forget about the divorce. I promise." A cold, cynical laugh escaped my lips. I couldn't help it. "Come back to me," I said. "Do you think I would pick up trash that I threw out?" "And Simone, you're too late, Darnell. She left you about an hour ago, didn't she?" "Right when the execution team arrived. My legal team just informed me. She ran away with her suitcases and didn't look back once." I could hear Darnell's sharp intake of breath. He was realizing something terrifying. "How do you know that?" His voice was barely a whisper now. "Kesha, who are you? What are you?" I smiled. A real, genuine smile. "Do you really want to know, Darnell? For all the years you lived with me, all the years you insulted me and called me a sickly, broke little dog who wasted her time on her phone. You never once asked me what I was actually doing. You never once cared. What do you mean?" Darnell's voice was shaking with pure fear now. I nodded to Director Thompson. She stood up and walked over to take the phone. "Hello, Mr. Carter," Director Thompson said, her voice professional and cold. "You are currently speaking with the Executive Board of Directors of Monroe Luxury Group Holdings, Director Thompson." Darnell's voice cracked. "Why do you have Kesha's phone? What is your relationship with my wife?" I took the phone back. "She's not my friend, Darnell," I said clearly. "She's not some woman from my church group. She's my CEO, the person who runs my company for me." Complete silence from Darnell's end. "You asked me who I am?" I continued, standing up and walking toward the window. I looked down at the street 40 floors below, where I knew Darnell was probably still sitting like a beggar. "You called the number of the poor, sickly little dog you abandoned 3 days ago, but allow me to officially introduce myself." I paused for dramatic effect. "Hello, Darnell. You are speaking with Kesha Monroe, the sole owner, founder, and chairperson of Monroe Luxury Group Holdings, the company with a net profit of $5 million per month, the company that just recovered all of its assets from you, the company you tried to steal from." I heard it. The sound of Darnell's phone hitting concrete, the clatter, and then nothing. Just dead silence. "Mr. Carter," I said into the phone, "are you still there?" But there was no response. He had dropped the phone. He was probably frozen in shock, staring at nothing, his entire world shattered beyond repair. I hung up. I turned to face my board members. They were all looking at me with expressions of respect and satisfaction. "Well," I said calmly, "I think that went rather well." Shall we continue with the Dubai expansion proposal? And just like that, we went back to business because that's what I was, a businesswoman. A powerful, successful businesswoman. And Darnell, he was nothing. Just a memory of a mistake I'd once made. Darnell collapsed on that dirty sidewalk, completely destroyed. His phone lay beside him. Screen cracked even worse now. The call had disconnected, but he could still hear my voice echoing in his head. Kesha Monroe, the sole owner, founder, and chairperson of Monroe Luxury Group Holdings. No, it was impossible. It had to be impossible. This had to be some kind of nightmare, some kind of sick joke. But deep down, in a place he didn't want to acknowledge, he knew it was true. Everything suddenly made sense. All those nights I'd been on my phone, all those times I'd been busy in the kitchen, all those mysterious meetings I'd said were with my women's group. I had been building an empire right under his nose. While he mocked me and belittled me and called me useless, I had been creating a $1 billion corporation. Get up. Darnell slowly lifted his head. A voice was speaking to him, but it wasn't coming from his broken phone. I said, "Get up, Mr. Carter." He looked up. Director Valencia Thompson was standing right there in front of him, flanked by 2 massive security guards in black suits. How had they gotten here so fast? "Chairperson Monroe would like to see you," Director Thompson said coldly. "Come to the MLG building lobby. She wants to see you with her own eyes. She wants to see the face of the arrogant man who called her a dog." Darnell's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "You have 2 choices," Director Thompson continued. "Come voluntarily, or we'll have these gentlemen assist you. Either way, you're coming." Darnell looked at the 2 security guards. They looked like they were hoping he'd choose to resist. He stood up slowly, his legs barely supporting him. He was still in his dirty pajamas. He looked like a homeless person. "This way," Director Thompson said, turning on her heel. Darnell followed like a condemned man walking to his execution. They crossed the busy street. Car horns blared at him as he stumbled across. They approached the massive blue glass building with those 3 giant letters at the top. MLG. The building's lobby was like stepping into another universe. Everything was marble and glass and gold accents polished to perfection. There was an artificial waterfall on one wall. Dozens of impeccably dressed employees rushed back and forth, all looking important and busy. And there was Darnell standing in the middle of it all in his dirty pajamas and hotel slippers, looking like a stain on pristine white canvas. A beautiful receptionist looked at him with obvious disgust. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice hostile. "May I help you?" Darnell couldn't form words. "He's here to see Chairperson Monroe," Director Thompson said, walking up behind him. "Chairperson Monroe," the receptionist's eyes widened. "Do you have an appointment?" She asked for him specifically, Director Thompson said coldly. "Let him wait here." The receptionist looked like she wanted to argue, but one look at Director Thompson's face made her think better of it. Darnell was led to a VVIP waiting area in the center of the lobby. "Wait here," Director Thompson ordered. "Chairperson Monroe will come down when she's ready." And so Darnell stood there waiting. Every second felt like an eternity. Every employee who passed by stared at him. Some whispered to each other. Some took out their phones. He was being photographed, documented. His humiliation was being recorded for posterity. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed through the lobby. It came from a private elevator at the far end. Immediately, everything stopped. Every single person in that lobby froze whatever they were doing. The busy employees stopped mid-stride. The receptionist stood up straighter. Even the security guards at the main entrance turned to face the elevator. They all stood at attention, some bowing slightly, all showing the utmost respect. The VVIP elevator doors opened. 2 personal bodyguards in black suits stepped out first, positioning themselves on either side of the doors like sentinels, and then I emerged. Darnell actually gasped out loud. He felt like he might die right there on the spot. The woman walking toward him was me, Kesha, his wife, but not the Ka he knew. This woman was a queen. I was wearing a premium sapphire blue power suit that fit my body absolutely perfectly. A silk scarf in the same color was wrapped elegantly around my head in a modern chic style. My face, which had been so pale and sickly just 3 days ago, was now radiant. I was wearing subtle but expensive makeup that highlighted my features beautifully. I walked with absolute confidence. My high heels clicked softly but powerfully on the marble floor. An aura of pure power and wealth emanated from every movement I made. Every employee I passed greeted me with the utmost respect. Good afternoon, Chairperson Monroe. Good afternoon, Chairperson. The voices created a chorus of difference. I acknowledged them with slight nods but never took my eyes off my target. Off Darnell. Director Thompson immediately approached me and bowed slightly. Chairperson, he is waiting as requested. I nodded. Thank you, Director. I walked slowly toward Darnell. Each step I took seemed to crush whatever remained of his pride. I stopped exactly 3 FT from him. I examined him from head to toe, from his messy, uncombed hair to his dirty pajamas to his cheap hotel slippers. My gaze was cold, analytical, and absolutely merciless. Kesha, Darnell barely managed to whisper. Yes, Darnell, I said, my voice calm and clear, echoing in the moth-silent lobby. It's me, the sickly, broke little dog you abandoned 3 days ago. And that's when it happened. That's when Darnell completely broke. All his strength vanished. His knees buckled. He couldn't control it. He slumped down onto that cold marble floor. He knelt at my feet and started crying uncontrollably. Kesha, I'm sorry, he sobbed, his voice echoing throughout the lobby. Please, Kesha. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was blind. I sinned against you. He tried to grab the edge of my jacket with his shaking hands, but he couldn't even manage that. His hands were trembling too violently. Everyone in the lobby was shocked into stillness. This scene was too dramatic, too surreal. A grown man hysterically crying at the feet of their chairperson. My 2 bodyguards stepped forward, ready to remove him, but I raised my hand. A silent signal for them to stop. I wanted Darnell to feel this humiliation completely, every second of it. Forgive me, Kesha, Darnell wailed. Give me back our house. Please, I'll leave Simone. I'll be your husband again. I'll do anything. I looked down at him. No expression on my face. No pity, no anger, just an ice-cold void. I leaned down slightly, not to help him up, but to make sure he heard every single word I was about to say. Get up, I ordered. My voice was low, but full of absolute authority. Darnell struggled to his feet, using every bit of strength he had left. His face was drenched in tears and sweat and snot. He looked pathetic. I looked directly into his eyes. You want to beg? I asked loud enough for everyone around us to hear clearly. Too bad, Darnell. My company doesn't hire dogs. I reached into my designer purse and pulled out a silk handkerchief. For a split second, Darnell's eyes showed hope. He thought I was going to wipe his tears, show him some mercy. Instead, I used the handkerchief to wipe an imaginary speck of dust from the sleeve of my jacket, as if I had just touched something dirty and needed to clean myself. My company, I stated clearly and coldly, does not hire dogs. I turned around elegantly. I walked back toward the VVIP elevator without looking back even once. Director Thompson, I said as I walked, handle him. Give him one last lesson. Make sure he understands exactly what he threw away. Understood, Chairperson, Director Thompson replied. The elevator doors closed. I was gone, vanished from Darnell's sight. He stood there completely shattered. The public humiliation he had just received from the woman he once called trash was 1,000 times more painful than losing the house and the cars. 1,000,000 times more painful. This was it. This was my revenge, and it tasted absolutely perfect. Director Thompson approached Darnell with 2 lawyers in impeccable suits following behind her. Come on, Mr. Carter, she said without a trace of sympathy. Let's finish this. There's something Chairperson Monroe wants you to see, something that will help you understand just how monumentally stupid you've been all these years. Darnell was dragged by the security guards into a luxurious conference room on the mezzanine floor. He was shoved into a chair. The large glass window overlooked the lobby so he could see everything below and be seen by everyone. In front of him sat Director Thompson and the 2 lawyers. Mr. Carter, Director Thompson began, her voice like a teacher, lecturing the dumbest student in class. You're still confused about how the wife you considered useless, poor, and sickly could possibly be the owner of all this? Darnell said nothing. He didn't have the strength. Director Thompson pressed a button. A large projector screen descended from the ceiling and the lights dimmed. Screen lit up with a massive title, Monroe Luxury Group Holdings, Business and Financial Report. Well, Director Thompson said, settling back in her chair, let's begin your education, Mr. Carter. Let's go back to 5 years ago. Graphs appeared, income statements, balance sheets, numbers in the millions and billions that made Darnell's eyes hurt just looking at them. 5 years ago, Director Thompson continued, you had just been laid off from your first job. You were depressed, angry. You blamed the entire world for your problems. While you were busy feeling sorry for yourself and searching for a new job, your wife, whom you believed was just a simple homemaker, started working. But not for you, for herself. Darnell lifted his head slightly, confused. She wasn't cooking in that kitchen, Mr. Carter, Director Thompson said, a slight smile on her lips. She was formulating skincare products using herbal recipes passed down from her grandmother, premium luxury skincare. When you mocked her for being glued to her phone late at night, she wasn't wasting time. She was responding to hundreds of orders from customers all over the country. She was building an empire. The screen changed. Photos appeared, a cramped office space, then a larger warehouse, then a massive state-of-the-art factory. Then photos of MLG branches in New York, Paris, Shanghai, Tokyo, London, Dubai. Monroe Luxury Group Holdings, Mr. Carter. MLG, it stands for her maiden name, Monroe. This company, this building, everything you see around you is hers. 100% hers. Darnell's whole body started trembling. But how? He whispered. The money? Where did the money come from? The money. Director Thompson's smile widened. You always underestimated her because she never asked for much, didn't you? You were so proud to give her a monthly allowance of $300 for household expenses. $300. And you often cut even that when you were angry with her. You called her poor. You called her broke. Director Thompson pressed another button. The screen changed. A massive number appeared, so large it filled the entire screen. 1,500,000. Director Thompson let that number sink in. $1. 5 million, Mr. Carter. That is Miss Monroe's personal monthly net income. Money that goes into an account in her own name. An account you never knew existed. An income far greater than your company CEO's salary. Far greater than anything you could ever dream of earning. And you called her broke. Darnell felt like he was going to vomit. The room was spinning. That's just her personal income, one of the lawyers added. The company's overall monthly revenue is 12 times that amount. But let's focus on your debt, shall we? The screen changed again. Documents appeared. Loan agreements, bank statements, the $4 million loan you used to buy that house and those luxury cars. Director Thompson continued. You were so arrogant when the bank approved it, weren't you? You thought it was because of your stellar reputation, your excellent job performance. Darnell's eyes widened as he stared at the documents on screen. A year ago, Director Thompson said, her voice hardening, when you almost went bankrupt from your failed side business investments, your loan went into default. The bank was about to foreclose on everything. You were about to lose it all. But Miss Monroe knew through me, through MLG Holdings, we bought your entire debt from the bank. We paid it off. All $4 million. No, Darnell whispered, shaking his head. No, that's not possible. It's not just possible. Mr. Carter, it's fact. That house you were so proud of, those cars you used to show off to your friends, they became the property of MLG Holdings a year ago. Miss Monroe saved your reputation. She allowed you to continue living there. She allowed you to continue your pathetic bragging. She was still trying even after everything to respect you as her husband. She hoped you would change. She hoped he would become a better man. Tears started flowing down Darnell's face again. But these weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of absolute devastation. Tears for his own infinite stupidity. She knew, he whispered, horrified. She knew I was cheating. Of course she knew, Director Thompson said coldly. She knew everything. One of the lawyers spoke now. And now, Mr. Carter, let's look at the evidence we've compiled. The screen changed once more. This time it wasn't financial documents. It was video footage, security camera footage. Darnell saw his own living room. He watched himself on screen, tenderly embracing Simone on the sofa. The date stamp in the corner showed it was from 6 months ago, when I had supposedly gone to one of my women's group meetings. The video changed. Now it showed the bedroom. Darnell watched Simone trying on my clothes and headscarves, laughing and throwing them on the floor like trash. And there he was, laughing right along with her, encouraging her. "Stop," Darnell whispered. "Please stop." But they didn't stop. The final video began playing, the most damning one. 3 days ago, in that same bedroom, Darnell saw himself standing arrogantly in front of the bed where I lay sick and dying. He heard his own voice filled with venom and hatred echoing through that conference room. "Listen up, you sickly broke little dog. I already filed the divorce papers. Get out of this house tomorrow morning." He watched himself throw the divorce papers at me. He watched me cry. He watched himself walk out without a shred of compassion. "Enough." Darnell screamed, covering his face with both hands. "Stop it! Please, just stop!" The screen went black. Silence filled the room. "Hidden cameras," the lawyer said calmly. "Installed throughout the house a year ago by Miss Monroe when she started suspecting your infidelity. Every word, every action, all recorded, all documented." Darnell was sobbing now. Uncontrollable, broken sobbing. The evidence was irrefutable, undeniable. "She's going to put me in jail, isn't she?" Darnell asked through his tears. "I'm going to prison." "Initially, that was the plan," Director Thompson said. "We had prepared charges for verbal domestic abuse, abandonment of a sick spouse, and adultery. More than enough to put you away for several years." Darnell's blood ran cold, but Director Thompson continued. "Miss Monroe changed her mind. She decided that jail would be too comfortable for you. Prison would give you 3 meals a day, a bed to sleep in, a roof over your head. She wants you to experience something far worse than that. She wants you to live with your humiliation." Director Thompson placed a thin folder on the table in front of Darnell. "This is Miss Monroe's official divorce petition. It includes a claim for moral damages as well." Darnell opened the folder with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the pages until they landed on a number that made his heart stop. $400,000, he read out loud, his voice breaking. $400,000 in damages. "That's correct," the lawyer said. "For emotional distress, public humiliation, and the years of verbal abuse you subjected her to." "I don't have that money," Darnell screamed. "You took everything, every penny I had." "We're aware of that," Director Thompson said calmly. "But you still have your job, don't you?" Darnell looked at her confused and terrified. "Actually," Director Thompson's smile returned, and it was absolutely cruel. "I need to give you some breaking news, Mr. Carter. About an hour ago, MLG Holdings completed the acquisition of 70% of the shares of Carter Industries, the company where you work. As the new majority shareholder, Chairperson Monroe's first executive order was a complete management reorganization." Darnell's face went completely white. "Your termination letter has been signed and processed," Director Thompson said. "You are officially fired, Mr. Carter, effective immediately." This was it, the final nail in Darnell's coffin. He had lost everything now: house, cars, wife, savings, credit, and now his job. The one thing that had given him his identity, his pride, his sense of worth. "You're demons!" Darnell cried, his voice broken. "All of you, you're destroying me." "We're not demons, Mr. Carter," Director Thompson said coldly. "We're simply delivering justice. And regarding that $400,000 debt, Miss Monroe is actually being quite merciful. She knows you can never pay it, so she's giving you an option." Director Thompson slid another sheet of paper across the table. "Sign this confession. Admit all your actions, your adultery, your verbal abuse, your abandonment of your sick wife. If you admit you were wrong, that you committed these acts, the debt will be waived. You'll owe nothing." Darnell looked at the confession statement. It was detailed, specific, humiliating. It would destroy whatever tiny shred of reputation he might have left. "Why do you need this?" he asked weakly. "Insurance," the lawyer replied. So you don't go around spreading false stories about Miss Monroe or trying to extort her in the future. This confession ensures your silence. Darnell had no choice. None whatsoever. Fired, bankrupt, homeless with a $400 $0 debt hanging over his head that he could never, ever pay. With trembling hands, he picked up the pen that was offered to him. He signed his name on that confession. He signed away the last piece of his dignity. "It's done," Director Thompson said, quickly gathering the papers. "You're free to go, Mr. Carter." Just then, the conference room door opened. I walked in again. I stood in front of Darnell, who was now completely defeated, his head bowed in shame. "You divorced me, didn't you, Darnell?" I asked, my voice low and controlled. "You threw those divorce papers in my face when I was burning up with fever." I pulled out the same brown folder he had thrown onto my bed 3 days ago. Director Thompson had kept it all this time, in front of Darnell's disbelieving eyes. I slowly, deliberately tore up the divorce petition that he had filed. The torn pieces of paper fluttered down onto his lap like confetti. "I am the one divorcing you," I said, my voice as cold as Arctic ice, "and I'm making absolutely certain you don't get a single penny from me. Not now, not ever." I looked at him one final time. "Now get out of my building." The 2 security guards who had been standing by immediately stepped forward. "Remove this trash from the premises," Director Thompson ordered. Darnell didn't resist. He couldn't. He was already dead inside. He was dragged out of that conference room, his arms held firmly by the guards. He was pulled through the crowded lobby once again. Employees stopped what they were doing to watch. Some looked at him with pity. Most looked at him with disgust. The automatic glass doors opened. Darnell was thrown back onto that hot sidewalk for the second time that day. He fell hard, scraping his palms on the rough concrete. He lay there penniless, jobless, homeless, wearing nothing but dirty pajamas and cheap slippers with only a signed confession of his sins that had freed him from a debt he could never pay. His ruin was complete, total, absolute, and I watched from my office window, 40 floors above, feeling nothing but satisfaction. Karma had won. Justice had been served. And Darnell Carter would spend the rest of his life regretting the day he called me a dog. The days that followed were a descending spiral into hell for Darnell. He spent the first night after being thrown out, sleeping on a bench in a public park. He was cold, hungry, terrified. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. The second day, he tried reaching out to his so-called friends. The guys he used to party with, the colleagues he used to brag to about his house and cars and success. He walked miles to the coffee shop where they usually met, hoping to find someone, anyone who would help him. When he walked in looking like a homeless person, several of his former friends were there. He approached them desperately. "Hey guys," he said, trying to smile. "It's me, Darnell." They looked at him with a mixture of shock and discomfort. "Darnell," one of them said slowly. "Man, what happened to you? I've been framed." Darnell lied, the words coming out automatically. "It's all a misunderstanding. My accounts are frozen temporarily. Can you loan me some cash? Just enough for food and maybe a motel room." His friend's face immediately changed. Went cold. "I'm sorry, Darnell. The news has already spread through all our group chats. You got fired from Carter Industries. MLG Holdings seized all your assets. Everyone knows you crossed Monroe Luxury Group." Darnell felt his stomach drop. "Look, man," another friend said, standing up and backing away. "I can't help you. None of us can. We don't want any trouble with MLG. That company is massive. They have connections everywhere. I'm sorry, but you're on your own." One by one, his friends left. They literally walked away from him like he had some contagious disease. Darnell was escorted out of the coffee shop by staff. He was told not to come back. By the third day, he was starving. Actually starving. His stomach hurt. His head was pounding. He had no money. No phone anymore. It had finally died. And he had no way to charge it. No friends, no family willing to talk to him. He walked to the Central Market area where day laborers gathered looking for work. Manual labor, the kind of work he used to look down on with contempt. "Sir," he approached the foreman timidly. Do you need help? Any work available? The foreman, a thick-set man with weathered skin, looked him up and down skeptically. You look too clean to be a laborer, but I guess desperate times, huh? Can you lift heavy things? Yes, sir, Darnell said quickly. I'm strong. I need to eat. The foreman pointed to a massive pile of rice sacks. Move those from here to that truck. $1.50 per sack. No breaks, no complaints. And that's how Darnell Carter, the man who used to wear designer suits and drive luxury sports cars, became a day laborer. He spent that entire day loading 50 lb sacks of rice onto trucks under the scorching sun. His back screamed in pain. His hands, which had never done real manual labor, blistered and bled. His muscles, which had only known air-conditioned gyms, cramped and seized. By the end of that first day, he had moved 37 sacks, $50. He used most of it to buy a small plate of rice and beans from a street vendor and rent a spot on the floor of a boarding house that charged by the night. This became his life day after day after day. Weeks passed, then months. The man who used to obsess over his appearance now had a scraggly, unkempt beard. His face, once handsome and carefully groomed, was now weathered and covered in grime. His skin was burnt dark by the sun. His body, once athletic, became emaciated from poor nutrition and brutal physical labor. His hands were permanently calloused, scarred, and rough. He had completely forgotten what clean clothes felt like, what cologne smelled like, what sleeping in a real bed felt like. He only knew the smell of sweat, the stench of the market, and the ache of sleeping on hard concrete or cheap boarding house floors. 3 months after his ruin, Darnell heard news about Simone from his fellow laborers who gossiped while they worked. Apparently, after leaving him, she tried to hook up with other wealthy men, but word had spread about her involvement with Darnell's scandal. No one wanted her. She'd burned through whatever money she had, sold all her designer bags and clothes at fraction of their value. Eventually, she'd been forced to take a job as a waitress at a sketchy bar downtown. Then came worse news. She'd been caught up in a police raid at that bar for illegal activities. Her mugshot had been all over local news. She was destroyed. Completely destroyed. Darnell felt nothing when he heard this. No pity, no satisfaction, nothing. His heart was completely dead. One afternoon, after 12 brutal hours of loading rice sacks in 100-degree heat, Darnell received his wages, $55 in wrinkled, dirty bills. He left the market, his body aching in ways he didn't know were possible. His stomach was growling. He stopped at his usual food stall. "Rice plate with side dish to go," he said in a hoarse voice. He paid with some of his carefully counted bills and took the small styrofoam container. He walked to a large intersection nearby, a place where he sometimes sat to eat because there was a small patch of shade from a traffic light pole. He sat down on the filthy sidewalk, leaning against that pole. He opened his food container. The small portion of rice and vegetables looked pathetic, but it was all he could afford. As he was about to take his first bite, something across the street caught his attention. A giant video screen. One of those massive LED displays mounted on the side of a tall building. It had just lit up with a live broadcast. Darnell froze. His plastic spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. On that screen, dozens of feet high, was my face. My face. Kesha Monroe. Crystal clear. Absolutely radiant. It was a live broadcast from some major international business conference. The banner at the bottom read, MLG Holdings Global Summit Chairperson, Kesha Monroe Keynote Address. I was wearing an absolutely stunning designer suit, cream-colored with gold accents. My hair and scarf were styled perfectly. I looked like royalty, like a queen addressing her kingdom. A foreign journalist was asking me a question. The audio was playing through speakers mounted on nearby buildings. Chairperson Monroe, the journalist asked in English with subtitles appearing on screen. You are currently ranked as one of the 50 most influential women in global business. You're one of the wealthiest self-made entrepreneurs in the world. What is the secret to your extraordinary success? Darnell's container of food slipped from his hands. It hit the sidewalk. Rice and vegetables spilled everywhere, mixing with the street dirt and grime. But he didn't notice. He didn't care. His eyes were locked on that massive screen. I smiled on that screen, a confident, powerful smile. "There is no secret," I said, my voice clear and strong, echoing across the entire intersection. I simply never stopped working. I never stopped believing in my own abilities and my own worth. Even when the person closest to me, someone who should have supported me, instead underestimated me, even when I was called useless and worthless. I knew my value, and I never let anyone else's limited perception define who I was or what I could become. The camera zoomed in on my face, on my eyes that were strong, determined, victorious. Success, I continued, comes from knowing your worth and never ever settling for less than you deserve from people who deserve you. The interview continued, but Darnell couldn't hear it anymore. The roaring in his ears was too loud. Up there on that giant screen displayed across the sky for the entire world to see was the woman he had called a sickly, broke little dog. The woman he'd thrown out of her own house. The woman he'd abandoned when she was dying of fever. And she was being interviewed as one of the most powerful business leaders in the world. Down here on the filthy street, sitting in his own spilled food, covered in sweat and grime and the stench of manual labor, was the man who had called himself a king. The man who thought he owned everything. The man who had been so arrogant, so cruel, so absolutely blind. Darnell looked down at his calloused, bleeding hands, at his dirty, torn clothes, at the rice scattered on the sidewalk, now inedible, mixed with dirt and trash. That had been his only meal, his only food for the day, and now it was gone. He looked back up at the screen, at my face, at my success, at everything I had become, and he laughed. A dry, hollow laugh. A laugh completely void of humor. A laugh that came from a soul that had been shattered beyond repair. He didn't cry. He was beyond tears. He just laughed that horrible, empty laugh. He had lost not just the house, not just the cars, not just his job or his money or his pride. He had lost everything that could ever possibly matter. And the woman he destroyed had risen from the ashes he tried to bury her in, and become a phoenix, a goddess, untouchable. While he was less than nothing. He couldn't even afford to pick up the rice that had fallen on the sidewalk, couldn't afford the dignity of a meal that hadn't been contaminated by street filth. Karma had completed its mission. Justice had been served. And Darnell Carter, the man who once thought he was a king, now knew with absolute certainty that he was nothing, had always been nothing, and would die as nothing. The video screen continued, showing my triumphant face as the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the intersection. Traffic moved, people walked by, life went on, and Darnell sat there in the gathering darkness, surrounded by his spilled food with nothing but the clothes on his back and the crushing weight of his own stupidity. He had called me a dog, but in the end it was him who was left in the gutter, begging for scraps, broken and defeated. And me, I was soaring, flying higher than he could ever have imagined, living a life he could never touch, achieving things he could never even dream of. That's how this story ends. Not with my destruction, but with his. Did you love this story? I hope it reminded you that karma never ever forgets. It might take days, it might take years, but eventually everyone gets exactly what they deserve. Drop a comment right now and tell me what city you're watching from. And tell me, what do you think should happen to people like Darnell? People who abuse, belittle, and throw away those who love them. If this story gave you chills, if it made you feel that sweet satisfaction of justice being served, then support this channel by sending a super thanks. Your support allows me to keep bringing you incredible revenge stories just like this one. Real stories, powerful stories, stories that prove that the arc of the universe might be long, but it always bends toward justice. I'm reading every single comment. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your own stories. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this? Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing? Tell me. Share with me. Let's build a community of people who believe in karma, who believe in justice, and who believe that no matter how dark things get, the truth always comes to light. You can see 2 brand new stories on your screen right now. Stories just as powerful as this one. Stories that will make you feel, make you think, make you believe that good people can win in the end. There's so much more content on this channel. Hours and hours of revenge stories, karma stories, justice stories, stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you never miss when I post a new story because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. My name is Kesha Monroe. I'm 41 years old. And this is the story of how I went from being called a sickly, broke little dog to becoming the queen of my own empire. Remember, never let anyone define your worth. Never let anyone tell you what you can't do. And never ever forget that karma is always watching. See you in the next story.